Okay, students, welcome back. We continue with necrosis and apoptosis. We have two sessions for this. I'll do some of the session necrosis and apoptosis here, and there'll be another lecture on necrosis and apoptosis this afternoon at 2 p.m. Please remember, 2 p.m. we have lecture on continuing this, and 3 p.m. we will continue with the practical. So the learning outcome for this is define necrosis and describe the morphology. And you should know versus type of necrosis: coagulative necrosis, liquefying necrosis, gangrenous necrosis, in terms of the etiology, common tissue involved, pathogenesis, and morphology. You should know what is apoptosis in terms of definition, its cause, its changes you see with specific examples. Also, you should know what are the biochemical changes you see and mechanisms in apoptosis, and tabulate the difference between cell necrosis and apoptosis. So you should know how to differentiate an apoptosis from necrosis. So we already discussed just now about the normal cycle. A normal cell, when get injurious, it gets cell injury, and when the cell injury is very severe and progressive, it ends up in irreversible injury. And there are two types: necrosis and apoptosis of cell death. So let's understand what is the difference and what it is and what are my morphology you see. So we are now talking about morphological changes in the cell. So to start with apoptosis. Okay, so apoptosis is an important mechanism to understand. What is apoptosis? Apoptosis is a programmed cell death. Okay, so it's a, what do you mean by programmed cell death? It's a natural process by which the body eliminates the unwanted cells. You know, the body, when there are various reasons, we'll talk about that. It's a natural process. It's not an abnormal process. So the word Greek fall off is means what is apoptosis means, fall off. How the trees, you know, once the leaves are old, it gets fall off, and new leaves will come. Similarly, apoptosis is old cells will be removed from the body and new cells will be brought into function. So the definition is a pathway of cell death that is induced by tightly regulated cellular program. So what is the definition of apoptosis? It's a pathway of cell death that is induced by tightly regulated intracellular mechanism. So basically, they say it's a process of cell death. It's a process by which a cell dies in the body in a natural way. How it happens? There is a highly regulated, highly managed intracellular program. Similar to that, you know, how the waste management, just now I was looking at Channel News Asia about waste management and things. The how, you know, the old things are discarded, the garbage management, things like that. All those are tightly regulated programs because these are highly toxic. They may cause damage to environment and society. So we have to eliminate the unwanted waste in a particular way. Similarly, the body has it. The body has a mechanism of removing the cells. So this is a mechanism is called apoptosis. So this definition just now I added, you know, because in sometime in exam we ask the questions SAQ, define apoptosis. So you have to write a very clear definition which explain everything. This is also the definition. If you write that, just to add another form, a form of cell death in which programmed sequence of event lead to elimination of cell without releasing harmful substance in the surrounding area. Another definition. It's a form of cell death in which there is a series of events that leads to elimination of the cell which is required to out, but at the same time, it will not cause harmful substance to come out in the surrounding tissue and damaging those cells also. So that's a perfect mechanism. It's tightly regulated suicide program. Another way is called as suicide program because we don't want this cell. I will tell you why. There are examples, then you will understand. So it is done by enzymatic destruction of DNA and cytoskeleton. Very closely regulated. Inside the cell, there are enzymes. You know, Every cell has its own death enzymes. Once the body tell them, okay, you need to die now, they're very sincere. The cells are not like humans. Cells follow the system, they follow the regulations. The body tell them now you need to go, they will go by following the regulated process. Usually the cell membrane, during the process of cell death by apoptosis, the cell membrane remains intact. There is no inflammation. Very important point. Apoptosis, when the cell die, the body don't respond. You know, a cell die by necrosis by external injurious agent. Necrosis happens, another form of cell death, where external agent, etiological agents causing cell death. That time the body responds by an event called as inflammation, firing. There is a war, there is a crime. This is something, you know, a person is given a death sentence. When a person is given a death sentence, it happens very peacefully. The person also don't go into revolt. He knows he is going to die. Peacefully, he will be hanged till death. The police is standing there. Everybody is there with a program. Whereas imagine there is a criminal who is most wanted and you police find him in some place. So what will happen there? There is a firing going on. There is a cross firing between the external injurious agent and the internal protective cells or inflammatory cells. So there is a whole inflammation going on. So during this cross firing, in case of necrosis, there will be injury to the surrounding tissue. Here there is no injury. Surrounding area will be not affected, no inflammation. But what happens is cell membrane remain intact, the cell get fragmented, small, and that will be phagocytized or eaten up, cleared by phagocytic cells. Phagocytic cells, I will talk about this in inflammation. They will eat up the dead components, cell fragments of the apoptotic cell. Example is neutrophils and macrophages. These are phagocytic cells. They are the cells which is in the tissue and in the blood. So this is highly regulated process. So it needs a lot of energy. Okay. So it's energy dependent. These are the character of an apoptosis. Huh? Examples of the apoptosis can be two forms: physiological, which can be a natural process; pathological, which is in abnormal diseases, the body take out the cells which are don't need it. The best example is the virus infected cells. For example, now in COVID-19, the SARS-CoV-2 virus infected cells, the body, the cells, specifically T cells, kill the cell which is infected by virus so that it will kill the virus inside also. So that is a pathological form. We will see examples of this. Okay, this can be your exam question. Name 4 causes of physiological apoptosis. The physiological apoptosis is programmed destruction of cell during embryogenesis. You already started, maybe introduced to the topic of embryology, how a child is formed in the mother's womb, the fetus, the embryo. So which includes during implantation, organogenesis, development, evolution, and metamorphosis. In this process, there are some tissues which is formed, like yolk sac. Okay, you may have heard of the term yolk sac. The yolk sac, over the time, will not be in your body. A new structures will be formed through that, and the original yolk sac will be cleared. And that process of taking out the embryonic tissue like yolk sac is called physiological apoptosis. And in adults, hormone dependent involution in adults, like endometrial cell breakdown during the onset of menstrual bleeding. If you know, every month a reproductive age woman will have menstrual cycle, the bleeding. And it is because the endometrium in the uterus, in the womb, the internal lining called endometrium will be shredded every month, so that next month if a new endometrium is formed, and if pregnancy happened that time, the the embryo can implant and attach to new endometrium. That process is called endometrial shedding during menstrual cycle. When shedding happens, that is the process of shedding, the destruction of endometrium, old metrium, is called apoptosis, and it's totally natural process. Every month, a reproductive age female will go through this, and that process go through underlying is apoptosis. Another important is the mother. A newborn child get all the nutrients from mother through lactation, and lactation period varies from 6 months to 1 year to 2 years depending upon the physiological condition, the situations, and mother's health. And once the lactation is stopped and weaning is started, weaning means other food the child start taking, so mother stop feeding. So the lactating breast stop producing milk. By the process of apoptosis, the milk producing cells are wane or destroyed, so the milk will not come. This is what happened in a post-lactating mother's breast. Similarly, in case of males, prostate get atrophied after castration, because of some pathological reasons or by choice. If a male choose to remove the testis, there will be no hormones like testosterone. And that cause, because constant stimulation of prostate by testosterone is needed for its normal functioning. If there is no testosterone, prostate will be lost. They become atrophied, it becomes small. All these process of apoptosis are managed through hormones. If there is no hormones, there is the cells will die. Endometrium cells also depend on hormone, the lactating breast also depend on hormones, the prostate depends on hormones. Similarly, the ovaries also depend on hormones. Hence, when a woman go into the phase of menopause, that means their reproductive age is end. There is no endometrial shedding, there is no menstrual bleeding every month. That age, the ovaries also get atrophied because there are no hormones going on. So all this atrophy of the ovarian follicular cells is the process of apoptosis. I tell you one more thing, students. I can understand your situation at this point. I'm talking about so many different organs, tissues, and their diseases and their functions, which you have not studied yet. Don't worry. You try to remember one of these four as an example for now, or two of these example, or try to understand it. I think most of you can understand some, but wait for the topics to taught in further modules so that you can come back and understand what I'm talking now. Okay, if you're not understanding anything, feel free to ask. Okay, this is what sometime apoptosis during development. So if there is no apoptosis, there can, like this child, normally they should be 4 fingers. And there is apoptosis happens, initially the fingers are like a web. These webs will be lost during the embryogenesis, and this is processed by apoptosis. But when the webs are not, there is some defect in apoptosis, some form, the webs will be remained, and the child later needs surgery for the hands or fingers to develop. So what are the other examples? Other examples of apoptosis by physiological form: death of host cells that serve their useful function. Our body cells like neutrophils and lymphocytes or immune cells, they have a particular function during inflammation. They go and do the function. Once the function is done, they will die by the process of apoptosis. Elimination of potentially harmful self-reactive lymphocytes. Lymphocytes sometimes, highly charged, weaponized cell can be harmful to the body tissue also, body cells also. They will be eliminated by self-destroying by themselves by the process of apoptosis. So apoptosis is causes pathological forms also. So pathological forms of apoptosis includes cell death, cell that is injured beyond repair. Some cells has got injured, we cannot repair them now. Better to replace new cells. The body will decide, okay, eliminate the cell. We cannot repair. DNA damage has beyond the capacity to repair. So body gives signal that eliminate this cell by apoptosis. Another, for example, hypoxic injury, radiation injury, or anti-cancer drug injuries damage DNA. The cell is still in the process of dying. Better the body will tell, kill that cell. We can generate new cells. In this situation, elimination of cells may be better alternative than risking mutations, because the DNA damage can have a risk of mutation that may end up in cancerous growth. So the body will tell, eliminate that. Other examples of pathological apoptosis, cell injuries, certainly in case of infected cells. Just now I have shown you viral infected COVID-19 cells, which is injurious to the body eliminates them. Pathological atrophy in parenchymal organs after duct obstruction. What it means, you know, for example, each of the glands, you think of your salivary gland, the parotid gland, the pancreatic gland, they have their own secretions. The secretions comes out through their own ducts. If the duct is blocked, the secretions start collecting, and that may cause pressure effect and pain to the patient, because there is no proper way to drain the secretions, because it is blocked by a stone, imagine. So what the body do? The body avoid pain, because there is no juice going out of the pancreatic or parotid gland. The body will tell the pancreatic or parotid gland, stop producing the secretion. How? It will cause apoptosis of secreting cells, the cells which are producing the juice in pancreas or parotid. That cells will undergo apoptosis. So the less juice is produced, the less pain. Similarly, if there is accumulation of misfolded protein lead to endoplasmic reticulum stress. This one, I tell you, you will understand when you study Alzheimer's disease, neurodegenerative disorders. Condition like neurodegenerative disorders, where the misfolded proteins are collected inside the cell and cannot be removed. So the body will destroy the cell itself. Okay. What is this? So what is the trigger? Trigger for apoptosis. Trigger for apoptosis is either the withdrawal of growth factors or growth stimuli. So trigger for apoptosis is withdrawal of the growth stimuli. Means, you know, each cell to survive, they need a continuous stimulus from the body telling that, okay, for example, you know, when you are studying any child which is growing, we have to encourage, you know, every time to tell them you are doing good, yes, you can do. Constant stimulation make things go progress good. Similarly, each cell in the body need growth stimuli from growth factors. Okay, like platelet derived growth factor, transforming growth factor, beta, all these are different chemicals in the body to keep the growth. So you will learn this during growth and differentiation. There is a lecture. Is that lecture done?
No.
Not yet, huh? So you will learn it over the time, don't worry. So those lecture, you will understand what are the growth factors. So once the growth factor is taken out, there is no good stimuli, the cell thinks, okay, there is no one thinking about me, I'm not needed, so I should go undergo apoptosis. Okay, don't try this in your personal life, everybody loves you, huh? So that signals some of the chemical the body will release that tell the cell to die. You know, something happens like in case last time, if you don't know that the samurais in the Japan, okay, they are very loyal to the kings, and once they know that the kings don't want them, there is some secret things happen. So they have to die. So once the king tell them, okay, you need to die now, this information comes. So they will die. Similarly, the cells in the body, they get signal tumor necrosing factor, FAS, fragment of immunoglobulins. All these chemicals come and attach to the cell. That means the cell has to undergo death. This is how apoptosis happen. In various examples, just now we discussed. In this example, how it happens is this, by this process. There are trigger, what you call it, trigger. DNA damage. Sometime when the damage is, there is damage to DNA. This is an important gene and its protein we call P53 gene. That is the one which will detect whether the DNA is damaged beyond repair or it can be repaired. It will tell. Okay. Anything? Okay, maybe. Okay, if DNA damage is repairable, the P53 send it to repair. If DNA damage is not repairable, the P53 automatically initiate the process of apoptosis and cause death of the cell. So mechanism of apoptosis, I will stop here. You have 2 hours time. Go back, have lunch, and read about whatever I've taught you now with the exam till apoptosis. In the afternoon, the first thing I will explain how apoptosis happens. It's a bit a complicated process. So
I have a question. Can you just repeat what P53 does?
okay, I can just, I will